Hi there, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sue.
And we're the mother-daughter duo behind Chatter Matters.
Each week, we're going to be chatting through everyday challenges and how we navigate them as two women from different generations.
So get yourself comfy, grab your cup of tea or coffee, and let us show you why Chatter Matters.
Welcome back to Chatter Matters.
Welcome back into the living room, everybody.
Another week is over and here we are again.
I know. I love the jumpsuit today, by the way. Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Nice, red, bright.
I know. I kind of, what can I say?
A little bit something.
It's probably appropriate colour for the subject that we're going to talk about.
Well, hilariously, to clue everyone in on that joke, I thought this week we could talk about the menopause. And the reason why, so we had planned to talk about something slightly different, which we'll do another time. But we were sat out on the patio planning episodes earlier today, and Mum was like, oh, it's too hot for me. Need to go inside. And I was just thinking to myself, like, is that because she's gone through menopause, or do I just handle the heat better? And then I just had this moment of like, you and I have kind of talked about it, but I don't actually think we've ever had a proper conversation about menopause. And I realised, like, I don't, as a woman who will go through it at some point in my life, I don't know that much about it. So I just thought this could be a little bit of daughter asks mother questions about menopause, and so then we can all just find out a little bit more together. And then, as always, we'll do a little bit about how do you have that conversation, because just talking about body shenanigans can always be a bit tricky unless you're dressed as the lining you're shedding as a way into the conversation. So I guess to start with, what I wanted to kind of start with is, well, my number one question, I hear it called menopause and the menopause. Is there a right way that I should be referring to it? Or is there like a...
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I always get worried I'm putting the wrong label on it.
No.
Should I be calling it the menopause? Feels very official.
So.
Okay. Well, that's question number one answered for me. But basically, Mum, so like, what is it? Just in general, give us like the general overview of what is menopause, because in my mind, it's just when your body's run out of eggs.
Well, I think it's that, but it's principally your hormones are shifting and changing.
Right.
So you stop producing estrogen. Or as much estrogen, hence why your eggs don't produce.
Right, because you run out.
Because you run out. But also it has other, and then if you imagine as a graphic equalizer, if your estrogen is starting to, drop, then your whole body hormonally starts to shift. The same as when you when you start your periods, your hormones go all over the place. It's the same when you go the other end, which is when you're in menopause, is your hormones again are all over the shop.
Yeah. And so I think there's a few different ways that I want to go about this. So I think one, I kind of want to just talk about like some sort of information that I think is good for people to know, whether you're a man or a woman, because lots of us are going to have mothers out there. So like all our mothers are going to be going through this at some point. Yeah. So I think there is some helpful things to know about the experience that your mother, your grandmother, your sister, whoever, your loved one is going through. Yeah. And then I think I'd love to ask you a little bit about having a conversation about it, of like, where, like, did you feel like because I don't feel like we had much of a conversation about it.
I mean, for me, that's one of the interesting things is that, as you get older as a woman, not many people are that interested in what's going on in your life, and you do go through quite significant. But I think it's one of those things as an older woman, you just kind of knuckle down and get on with it.
Why is that, do you think?
Up until recently, menopause really wasn't a conversation at all. I mean, Davina McCall has done a huge amount to bring it into mainstream consciousness and to be able to, start the conversation around it. Yeah. So I think it was just one of those things that older women felt like they just needed to muscle through, and not. And also I think HRT wasn't, as well spoken about as it is now.
Which is a medication?
It's, I think you can get it. You can either get it as creams. I've got a patch. Mm-hmm. But again, I only started using a patch 2 years ago because I was at the book club that I went to here in where I live, all of the women, you know, were talking about it, and most of them that were struggling with it had also got, you know, and those that weren't struggling with it were on HRT.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a conversation I'd had with my mum about it before she died.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really in the whole sphere of, you know, I kind of think I thought HRT was only if it was really bad.
Right, yeah.
You know, and I never had really bad symptoms. But listening to other women talking about it, I realised that actually some of it was the sweats at night, but they were never really bad sweats, but they did keep me awake. Some of it is also just generally, you know, your drop in estrogen means that your cognitive functioning is not as good as it used to be. You get a dry vagina, you know, so there are lots of things that are happening because of it that make it more uncomfortable. So, you know, so listening to those other women, I was like, I really think I ought to, you know, why not?
Well, and I think that's there's two things there for me. One, the power of speaking to other women your age and women older than you as well, who have going through it, and the power in like information sharing.
Yeah. And normalising.
Normalising and validating as well, I think. And then the other thing that you're just saying there around like, it's okay to access medical interventions that will make life easier.
Yes.
You don't need to qualify it with being super bad to access support.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's something there as
and
well.
I think, you know, I don't believe my mum ever took hormone replacement therapy, and I think it's come a long way, you know, from my mum's generation to now. So I think there was probably a little bit of a stigma around, and I also think some women struggle to get it. I think a lot of doctors were dismissing it, you know, which is, well, you're just going through the menopause, so just kind of go through the menopause.
Well, because a lot has changed as well, because one of the things that I'm more aware of is the impact that it's had on employment law in the UK. So with my other hat on, working in HR and human resources, there's been a lot that's shifted now as the menopause is talked about more in the workplace, and the number of tribunal cases and things like that where actually, you know, whilst it's not a like a disability per se, it is a medical condition that workplaces need to be aware of, and, you know, may need to temporarily make adjustments for someone going through the menopause. So I think that's how I've started to become a bit more conscious of it. But I guess that's not you know, because not everyone who's aged 25 is going to be working in HR and trying to keep track of employment law changes. But that's how I've started to get more aware of it. And I think, as you say, it must have only been in the last few years really that it's become a more normalized conversation at all. But I still think we're on a bit of a journey, given you and I talk about pretty much everything under the sun, and I think both you and I have sort of gone, why haven't we spoken about it as much? And I think
I was listening to Davina McCall on another one of her podcasts the other day, and she was actually talking to a sex therapist, which is a brilliant podcast, by the way. And she was saying that the piece of feedback that she got from doing that podcast that she loved the most was actually a man coming up to her saying thank you for doing it, because he now understood why his wife was behaving in the way that she was, you know, and whether that was because she was no longer sexually active, because it's actually painful, you know, and also, you know, you become a bit more irritable. You know, I think it helped that men understand what their wives or partners are going through. And again, it gave language to something that people weren't talking about.
Interesting. So I put a little poll out on Instagram, a question box, out on Instagram, saying that we were going to be recording this, and just seeing if any of our listeners, anyone who follows us on Instagram, and if you don't already, looking directly at the camera for those that are watching at home, at @ChattermattersPod on Instagram and TikTok. So if you want to see in there. But we've got a couple of questions that I guess I just wanted to ask you, and some of them are about talking to their own families. I guess some of them are just sort of based on curiosity, but the one I kind of wanted to start with was, what was something you wish someone had told you before you went through the menopause?
I mean, I wish that as part of educating people about, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because you do a lot when you're at school around understanding about reproduction and, safe sex and the pill and all that sort of the cycle. I wish at school you'd also done the whole journey of a woman. That you also, that you also learned that at some point you were going to stop your periods, and at some point your hormones were going to change again. But that's just another cycle of life.
Yeah.
So I wish somebody had given me the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because there is I didn't know when I was in perimenopause.
What is perimenopause?
So it's the sort of lead up to, before you, your periods might be spotty.
Right.
So 1 month you might, and next month you might not. So you start to get a bit more infrequent, or it becomes shallower and not as much. And I think I probably went through that for 2 years, but I had no idea what was going on. And then all of a sudden it stops, and I'm like, okay, so that must mean I'm now, and I don't feel, and I don't feel massively educated. It's something because I didn't have really difficult symptoms. I don't think I ever sought a lot of advice. I think I just kind of muscled through it and thought, it must be it. I remember talking to my own mum, and I asked her, because normally it's genetic, sort of roughly, so sort of early 50s. Is in our genes when you kind of go through menopause. So that's helpful for you to know. But I did talk to my sister a little bit about it, in terms of, what were her symptoms and how was she managing it.
Because your sister's older than you, isn't
my
she?
sister's older than me, So there were little bits of pockets of, of information. So I think one thing I would have loved to, you got books about reproduction and periods. I'd quite like books a bit more about menopause and how to prepare for it.
I think there's something there as well, just more generally, which we can talk about in another episode, but just more around reproductive health in general for men and women.
Yes.
So there's so many studies now about male fertility and how to manage that through your lifespan that isn't really well talked about in the same way that, the whole female reproductive cycle, as you say, we'd look at the menstrual cycle, but not the reproductive cycle of a woman. And so, that's really interesting about just not really.
Well, and having started this conversation, I have a very close male friend, and we were having a conversation about menopause, but also the conversation that hasn't yet started, which needs to, which is for men around erectile dysfunction. Because their testosterone drops off too. But of course, Western medicine has found a solution for that much faster than for women.
The Viagra?
Exactly. So they're making a lot of money out of men, not wanting to, kind of trying to combat that lack of virileness, through giving them a tablet. If the menopause conversation is far back, I think the male conversation around what happens to them reproductively when they get older is even further back.
Interesting. Fascinating. So leading on from that, we've got the next question, which I think is just good to, you've covered a little bit of this, but just how did menopause sort of, I'm paraphrasing, but how did it sort of affect your day-to-day life? Like, what were some of the symptoms that you saw, and kind of like what could you expect going through the menopause?
I mean, I was lucky and didn't have the big, massive hot flushes, but I have been with women that literally need to leave the room.
Oh, wow.
Because they are struggling. Do you remember you might not remember, but at your aunt's wedding, there was a makeup artist who came to do her makeup, who was a friend of yours. Yeah. And she was really struggling with sweats. I mean, she literally had to down tools and walk away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just that did not
clock.
I mean, I was 13, so I feel like, and it was my first wedding that I've ever been to, so I feel like I was bridesmaid as well. But I hadn't clocked that at all.
No, so I never struggled that badly, and I really, really sympathize with women that, because it's just not nice just to suddenly be hot and sweaty. At night I would, so it would disrupt my sleep. And that was probably the symptom that annoyed me the most. Was that, and even with my patches, if I forget to replace my patch, because you do it every week, if I forget to replace my patch, or I've taken it off and forgotten to put one on, I will notice immediately that night. It's that fast. It is that fast.
Okay, I might be skipping ahead here, but would you say so does menopause just last forever? Or like, does it stop at some point?
I assume because hormonally,
you're like balanced
you're trying to balance it. I assume. I mean, my understanding is that I will now stay on these patches all the time.
Oh, really?
For as long as I guess I want to keep my hormones in balance.
Yeah.
But it is pretty much instantaneous. So I will remember if I haven't put a patch on because I haven't slept well that night because I got all hot.
Interesting. God, that's fascinating. I never knew it was that.
Yeah, it's that immediate. Yeah.
Well, sorry about that, everyone. If you're watching at home, you'll see the lighting potentially may have changed a little bit. We had to have a brief interlude there because Mum and I had booked a massage and we didn't quite manage our time. So, brief pause, but we're back. A few hours later, drinks of choice have changed. I'm currently on the non-alcoholic beer, but
I'm still on the tea.
Mum's on the peppermint tea. Very wholesome of you. So I think we actually got to quite a good bit to pause anyway, because I had a few more questions that I just wanted to ask you. So the one I wrote down here, which is a bit of a question from me to you, is I know we're kind of past the main bit of you sort of finding out you were having the menopause, that kind of thing. But what do you think I can do as your daughter to better support you through this phase of life, if anything? And also, I guess, just more broadly, are there things that daughters and sons can do to help their mothers when they're going through this stage of life?
I don't know that there's anything you can, because now I feel like I've got my HRT, which helps a lot, and I've also found some supplements that also help me with my mood.
Yeah, you've been on quite a journey, haven't you, with getting your supplements right. Now you're in this sort of phase of life. Yes,
I've been experimenting with what additional supplements I need. Which has helped. And again, if I don't take those, I really notice it. So it's obviously doing something right. And one of them is a hormone sort of balancing thing that I take. So I don't know that there's anything more that you need to do. I feel like I'm sort of on top of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I sort of know what I'm doing. As and when I start dating again, that might change a few things. Because
what am I helping in this situation?
No, you're not. But for all the women out there, I mean, that your vagina does get dry, so you need a little bit more help with lube, I guess, and all those sorts of things.
Exciting.
And I think I overheard again on a podcast that Davina was doing, which is I think there's a vagina sort of estrogen.
Oh, interesting.
That you can take.
Like the opposite of what is it that you put up when you have thrush? A pessary.
Yeah. I think it's similar to that. Yeah. So I think there are other things that you can do to help yourself. But I'm not there yet.
Not there yet. Fair enough.
And I'm not sure you and I.
I was going to say, to be honest, you and I talk about a lot of things. I'm not sure I need to be looped in on your lube buying or. But more broadly, I guess, like if you were to do it all over again, and go through the process again, is there anything that you would have wanted from your children? Or did you feel like you kind of had a handle on it? Like, what do you think you did? I guess, actually, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
What do you think you did well going through it? Yeah. And would there be anything different that you would do?
I mean, the fact that you're asking me now, which is sort of 8 years later. No, but not that I needed it.
Sorry for anyone who wasn't watching. I just pulled a very yikes face.
But I'm not sure that you would have known, so that's the thing.
8 years ago, I was 17.
So
I had a lot of my own stuff going on. I don't know if I would have.
We all had
did
a lot of stuff going on.
Good Lord, Mum, you went through a lot at that time.
Yeah. So would I do anything differently? Only that if this could be a conversation, the same as you going and getting the pill, or you being late on your period, or it's the same sort of thing. If it could be a conversation,
normalize it a little bit more, rather than it be something that because I don't even think growing up I knew it was something that happened. I kind of just assumed this was me, and I got periods forever now.
Yeah. Well, but again, if you go back to where we started, it's only really been in probably the last 4 or 5 years that I don't know when Davina did her big thing. I can't remember.
And I'd be really curious because I feel like it's being talked a lot about in the UK. I'd be really curious, is it something that's spoken about in the US, in other countries like Australia and New Zealand? Like, I don't know. Because I agree, I think in the UK, like Davina had a massive impact. And so for anyone who doesn't live in the UK, Davina McCall's like she's sort of a TV presenter, isn't she? She does like Big Brother, and actually she did Big Brother for a while.
She does The Masked Singer now, doesn't she?
Singer,
one of the judges on The Masked Singer and stuff.
But like she's quite a famous TV presenter in the UK, and she did a load of like interviewing and documentaries and that kind of thing all around menopause, which kind of made it a bit more mainstream.
Well, and really was quite vulnerable around her own, her own journey, which I think just open the whole conversation up. So, but it's a good question. I don't know whether it's what it's like in other countries. So if you are listening to us from another country, we would love to know if this is an open kind of conversation.
Yeah, fascinating. So I guess so you say the only thing really would be potentially just to normalize it a little bit more. Do you think like
the only other thing is I think if your mother, if you're a child listening to this, if your mother is suffering in silence, like she doesn't know that she could get HRT, that if she's constantly talking about getting hot and flushes and not sleeping well, and people don't need to suffer anymore, there is stuff out there. So I think encourage your mother to go and talk to their GP about about getting some support, whether and again, I think do your reading, find some supplements, kind of you can help yourself now.
100%. And I think to your point of like there's so much more material out there now, and this is one of those helpful ones where because there's more material, it just is that it's becoming that much more normal. So I think like it's you can do so much more reading, so then you can advocate for yourself that much more. And we could go down a whole rabbit hole on advocating for women's health and that kind of thing, because as you say, some people that potentially having or hearing of issues with GPs and family doctors not prescribing HRT or medication to support. I think it's these types of conversations with your friends, with your family, and listening to conversations like this online, where it's like actually you can arm yourself with some more information to go and advocate for yourself to get support.
And my GP was great. I mean, I asked her about it and she said, kind of how come? And I said, well, I've had some symptoms and, it kind of, it bothers my sleep. And she said, well, let's try you on these patches and see what you think. But then she did say to me, and once you're on them, you won't want to come off.
Yeah.
So I think they know that most women, benefit from having a bit more hormonal support.
Regulation. And I guess it's just similar to, because I take the pill right now for hormonal regulation, because that helps regulate my periods and, that kind of thing. So I guess it's kind of no different. I guess the bit that's made me curious about having this conversation and something that I would want to add into my research when I eventually get there. And I think something that I don't know if you've researched it or, I would encourage you to do so is, I mean, do you have to then be on these patches for the rest of your life?
From what I've heard from my friends, that I think once you come off them, they don't like you going back on them.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
I don't know. I just heard. I heard from one of my, when the book club ladies were chatting about it. One of them was saying she used to be on them and then she thought she didn't need them and came off them, and then the doctor was really reluctant to put them back on again, because I don't know whether your body, because the other thing that is estrogen does is also around bone health. So osteoporosis is obviously a big thing, and I think when you reduce your estrogen levels, you're more prone to osteoporosis. So I think there's many more benefits rather than just dealing with hot flushes, that I think is worthy of. I mean, I think the whole hormonal. I think we're learning much more about hormones and how important they are and how to regulate and the impact that they have. And I think more and more medicine will, investigate that kind of area.
Well, I think because it's becoming, because I think it's becoming much more prevalent as well with the whole fertility conversation as well, because people are waiting that much longer to start families. Yeah. So actually, are there things that we could be doing earlier on to help regulate our hormones, to help prolong fertility and help ourselves if we do choose to have a family later on in life and things like that. So I do think you're right. I think I'm watching so much more of a conversation now, and maybe that's because there's a specific influencer who I follow called Chessie King, who is fabulous. She's one of my favorite influencers to follow, and she and her husband are trying for their second baby at the moment, and she's really open about their journey of they've been trying for over a year now, and they're not, they haven't had any positive pregnancy tests, and actually they've been really open about, both she and her husband Matt are looking at their own fertility, and so actually it not always being the woman that has the investigation done to them, but actually looking at the man as well. And so I don't know if it's because I follow both of them that therefore I'm becoming that much more aware of it, or if it is something that genuinely is bubbling up a little bit more. But it's such an important, I think internal hormonal health is such an important conversation that we just don't, we're so limited.
And I think some of it we don't really know, but I think as medicine keeps advancing, I think we'll become more knowledgeable about it. It's like, microbiomes in your stomach, gut, all of that is starting to also, hearing more and more about prebiotics and probiotics and all that sort of stuff.
You saying that has also made me think of like how much of this is also because with social media, we're so much more connected, but it also means that these smaller brands of businesses, so like Simprove, which is the probiotic active live bacteria thing, and then like Hertility, which is the female fertility hormonal kit. I'm like, how much of it is this actually a conversation that's starting now, or is it because we've got these brands that are doing sponsored posts to increase their revenue fundamentally, paying influencers to talk about it? Interesting. Capitalism potentially strikes again, but maybe for positive this time.
Maybe, and unless I guess it causes a huge amount of anxiety for people. I don't know. I guess if you can find ways to support yourself, and there are other, natural ways. I mean, I slightly worry, there are quite a lot, and this we might need to do on another podcast, is the whole sort of anti-aging. And how do you live longer, and therefore there's a lot going on around that, isn't there? And I think hormonal health is one aspect of, because that is you get a natural decline in estrogen, you get a natural decline in testosterone. And is that okay? Should we be combating it? Shouldn't we combat it? And that's with the HRT, that's the big conversation with women of my age is, if you're taking HRT, is it because you're trying, you're anti-aging?
Interesting. Is that, do you think that's a commonly held belief?
Well, I think there is a part of my generation of women that believe you shouldn't be substituting because our mothers didn't have HRT, they went through the aging process.
There's something so interesting about that to me though, and it for me it feels so reminiscent to the conversation around like epidurals and pain medication during birth, of like, why do we, and to anyone who decides to have a pain free, like a medication free birth, is that what you call it? Like a
non-intrusive,
non-medicated birth experience, or whatever. All power to you.
Yeah.
But there's something for me about like, why do we feel like women need to suffer in order to earn their stripes? Like, why do we feel like we have to accept our wrinkles, and we have to, and there's power in accepting the way that your body ages, and like the way that you've embraced your graying hair and things like that. But there is something for me about like, are you less of a woman if you don't just let nature take its course completely uninhibited? Which is just interesting to me.
I mean, I think generally around the whole, I think through most things in life I'm pro-choice, whatever, but and I think if there are medicines out there and you would like to take them, if there is ways of supporting yourself, you would like to take it, then your body, you choose.
Hell yeah. Amen, sister.
But equally, when there are advancements, how do you educate people so that you can make a choice and that you're not just ignorant to the options? So I think my mother was probably pretty ignorant, and therefore would have suffered through menopause and didn't know that there were other options. I was ignorant until I had this group of women that started talking about it.
Because wasn't it? I'm sure because I've been speaking to one of my friends about it because her mum has been going through menopause and has been on HRT and that kind of thing. I'm sure I spoke to her and correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't HRT been developed for decades and it's just not been like publicized or was there like some kind of smear campaign against it or something? I feel like that's tickling something in my brain.
There was that, I think you were more prone to get breast cancer or something like that. There was a big scare.
Was that a real study or was it just a bit of a scandal like the Blue Smarties thing?
I think a little bit. I think the study has been disproven that there is a causal link with it.
Yeah.
But yes, that was partly the reason why women weren't doing it, because apparently there was some study that said that and that's partly I think what Davina did with hers was dispelling the myths around that it wasn't bad for you, that it had been well tested. So that was a thing.
Crazy. It's so interesting, isn't it? Just again, like the power of media on healthcare and experience, and I guess something for us to all to be a bit more aware of as we step, as we've got so much more media at our fingertips.
Yeah. And the opportunity to educate yourself. You're not just relying on being passed down by the ancestors now. That there's advancements that we can take care of.
Oh yeah, no, that is. It's so interesting, isn't it? But I think the more that we can talk, as I feel like the message in all of our episodes, I think especially with this one is just like normalize talking about it. I don't think there's anything particularly contentious about this. It's just that we don't talk about it.
Yeah, and I would, and it would if you're. I think your mum would be really surprised if you were to just go. How are you doing? How do like if you haven't had a conversation around menopause?
Yeah.
I think I feel very seen.
Yes.
I feel very seen that you are interested, curious about what's going on in my life as I age.
Yeah.
And I would imagine most mums would feel quite seen if you were to ask them the simple question of, do you struggle with menopause? And are you in menopause, or are you going through menopause? Or are you through menopause? Or, what kind of symptoms, so that I can understand them and how I can support you. Yeah. I think most mums would be delighted that you would be curious. Well, I hope they would. I hope.
Yeah, and and even if it's just even if the entering in is I'm really curious and I want to make sure you're okay. Yeah. So I've been thinking about like, would you be going through the menopause? So like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Where are you at? Because I don't know much. Talk to me.
Yeah. And I think it is quite genetic. So I think, I think if your mother has a tough time, you may well have a tough time. If your mother's fine with it, then you'll probably be fine with it. I think it is quite genetic from having talked to my sister, and I don't remember my mum really talking about it or struggling with it. So I think we've been one of the lucky, the lucky ones. I mean,
well, hopefully your side of the genes pull through. I don't know how Dad's side deal with it, but I'm going to hope that this is something that gets passed down by you.
So thank you for asking the question.
No worries. Thanks for allowing us to change plan, divert, and do a slightly different episode than we planned, because I think it's just so interesting, and it's, I think as a woman, I find it so fascinating that there is a whole area that I am going to go through in 30 years time that I just don't know that much about. And so thank you to you as well.
Welcome. Well, have a good week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and listening. We love having you here with us in our living room.
In the living room.
And we will catch up with you next week.
We will do. If you guys have got any suggestions of any future episodes, let us know. We're doing a bit of planning at the moment of what the next few episodes might look like. So drop us a DM if you follow us on Instagram. And we'd love to hear from you. Have you, are you a woman going through menopause, and have you had conversations with your kids about it? Or, as Mum said, if you guys do end up chatting with your mums at all, then, we'd love to hear how those go. And, if there's any learnings that you have along the journey, because we can share those back out again as well.
Very nice. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.